Welcome to today's Explainer. You've already built that awesome trauma-informed classroom, right? You've absolutely nailed those universal Tier 1 supports, but we all know the reality. What happens when a student just needs kind of more? Today, we are moving beyond the universal and navigating the advanced tiers of the multi-tiered systems of support, or MTSS. We're going to break down exactly how to empower those students who require targeted, intensive help, and we'll do it in a way that is clear, structured, and totally actionable.
So, here's our roadmap for today. Think of our journey like a funnel. We're starting wide with approaches that go just beyond the universal, then narrowing down through Tier 2 interventions and aligning mental health services. Finally, we'll hit the narrowest part of the funnel, Tier 3 intensive supports and decoding behavior with FBAs. Let's jump right in.
Section 1. Beyond Universal Prevented Approaches. Basically, what do we do when Tier 1 just isn't quite enough?
First off, the work you are already doing, it's incredible. Those preventative Tier 1 strategies are absolutely hitting the mark for the vast majority of your kids. But let's be real, a few are going to inevitably need more. And when we step into these advanced tiers, the whole game changes. You are no longer acting in a silo. Actually, you literally can't. Advancing up that MTSS ladder means leaning on a dedicated team approach. It means we've got to ramp up our progress monitoring to spot those behavioral patterns. And crucially, for trauma-informed care, it means taking a really hard look at the environmental factors that might be throwing a wrench into students' growth. It's all about just dialing up the precision and the frequency of the supports you're already rocking.
Moving on to Section 2, Tier 2 Targeted Interventions. Let's look at our menu of options.
I love thinking of Tier 2 as a menu. These are targeted strategies that layer seamlessly right on top of the universal foundations you've already built. And to be clear, we are not talking about punitive measures here. No way. We're looking at strategies that foster real connection and actively reach each expectations. You've got options like behavior contracting, which is fantastic, though it does require your whole staff to be on the same page. You've got targeted social skills training, pulling together small groups for some non-punitive reteaching, and mentoring, which is really just about building that deep, crucial connectedness within your school community. Let's actually zoom in on two heavy hitters from this list.
First up is Check and Connect. Think about pairing a student with, say, their absolute favorite gym teacher, or the school counselor, basically someone who isn't their main classroom teacher. This specific staff member becomes a vital liaison. They connect the student, their family, the school staff, and even the broader community. And it's super flexible. It can run at a basic level, maybe just a quick once-a-month touch base, or an intensive level, with way more frequent check-ins to troubleshoot and track progress.
Alternatively, there's Check-In, Check-Out, or CICO. This one provides a really comforting, predictable daily bookend for a student. They check in with a familiar face first thing in the morning, just to make sure they're ready to go, they've got their stuff, and to grab their daily progress report. Then, they check out at the very end of the day to tally up any points they earned for some contingent reinforcement. It literally builds the portive, positive touch points into every single day.
All right, Section 3, Aligning Mental Health Services. This is all about coordinating targeted care.
Before we squeeze down to the narrowest part of our funnel, we've got to talk about how Tier 2 interventions gain this massive, absolutely life-changing impact when they are perfectly coordinated with professional mental health treatments. For instance, take a look at aggression replacement training for adolescents that's laser-focused on social skills and anger control. Or CBITS and its elementary version Bounce Back, which specifically target trauma and PTSD symptoms across K through 12. Then there's the Blues program, getting high schoolers actively engaged in reducing depressive symptoms. Now, the takeaway here is not that you need to go out and run these clinical programs yourself. The point is that your school-based Tier 2 supports need to seamlessly align with these outside professional services to genuinely support the whole child.
But here's the million-dollar question, right? It's the one that causes genuine angst for educators. What happens when a student still struggles? What if those Tier 2 approaches, even when they're beautifully layered on top of your Tier 1 climate, just aren't quite enough?
Well, I want you to read this quote and just breathe a sigh of relief. Don't worry, all is not lost by any means. Seriously. Every single ounce of effort you've put in so far has actually set the perfect, absolutely necessary stage for the final part of our funnel.
Which brings us to Section 4, Tier 3 Intensive Supports. We're moving into highly individualized, student-centered interventions.
This is the transition from targeted groups down to the individual student. These strategies are incredibly student-centered, highly customized, and, let me be perfectly clear, they absolutely demand a dedicated collaborative team approach. You cannot and should not do Tier 3 on an island.
Now, I know it sounds super intimidating, but let's demystify it. It really breaks down into two clean, interrelated steps. Step 1, you decode why the behavior is happening. Step 2, you layer on specific, targeted strategies that perfectly match what you just decoded. Basically, we're swapping out random trial and error for strategic, logical action.
And that leads right into Section 5, Decoding Behavior with FBAs. It is officially time to put on your detective hat.
Okay, the term Functional Behavioral Assessment, or FBA, it carries a ton of baggage, right? It's just more alphabet soup for us to swallow. It usually stresses people out because it's associated with intense legal requirements or overly academic jargon. Let's strip all that intimidation away. At its core, an FBA is literally just an information gathering process. It's designed to help your team figure out the underlying reasons, the function, of a student's behavior. It gives you the tools to form an educated hypothesis about what the student is actually crying out for, so you aren't just taking shots in the dark.
So, how exactly do we gather that intel? Honestly, it's a lot like teaching basic reading comprehension. Decoding that ABC chain of behavior, antecedent, behavior, and consequence, really just boils down to asking the classic 5W questions. Who is around when the behavior happens? What exactly is going down? When is it most likely to flare up? Where does it take place? And the big one, why is the student doing this? When you answer those contextual questions, the triggers and the hidden functions of the behavior start to become crystal clear.
And this brings us to a massive, fundamental truth in trauma-informed care. When we see patterns emerge, and we know trauma is a factor, our goal is never to try and change the child's basic human need. That is a losing battle, right from the start. Instead, our focus has to shift toward engineering safer environments to minimize their exposure to triggers while actively teaching them positive, healthy ways to get those exact same needs met.
All of this amazing detective work you've done, it feeds directly into the positive behavior support plan. Those hypotheses you formed during the FBA literally become your navigational compass. This plan ensures the interventions you end up picking are directly linked to the student's actual triggers. It creates this really healthy, sustainable balance of prevention, active skill teaching, and logical, humane consequences. Bringing this whole thing full circle, I want to share this powerful quote from our source material. Implementation of REAP can help build student resiliency and may reduce the need for advanced tier supports in the first place. Now, REAP, which stands for Building Rapport, Clarifying Expectations, Positive Acknowledgement, and Providing Opportunities to Respond, that is your rock-solid Tier 1 foundation. A strong, trauma-informed climate actually reduces the need for all the advanced tiers we've been talking about today. But when they are needed, those advanced tiers are really just an extension of those exact same supportive principles.
I want to leave you with a final thought to chew on as you head back into your schools today as newly deputized behavioral detectives. If behavior is simply a student's way of communicating a hidden need, what is the environment in your classroom currently telling them? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and honestly, keep up the amazing work you're doing for your kids every single day.